right. When you hear the funky music and see the fancy video playing, then you know it's a Friday night live stream. This is John, and I'm here with Angela beaming in with the magic of the internet from Boise, Idaho. How you doing, Angela?
I'm doing okay, John. How about you?
I'm doing fine. ICSA is coming up tomorrow, the virtual ICSA, and I will be so glad when it is behind us. But it's going to be a great time. I know that for sure. But boy, I'm a little bit nervous about it, because there's so many people are interested in going. And I understand why, because there are going to be some great panels and speakers. And I mean, I'm glad that there's a lot of excitement about it, but it actually puts a
Yeah.
little bit of pressure on me. I feel like I hope I can handle the room okay and that everybody knows what they're supposed to do.
I'm sure that we'll get through it the same way we always do. And, part of it may be a shit show, but,
True.
it's AA and that's kind of what it's about. I'd be
Yeah.
disappointed if there wasn't something, that then we'd have reached perfection and we'd all be well. And it'd be good. So.
Like I say at work, I say this at work a lot. I say, well, it's not like we're going to kill anybody or anything. Nothing, no harm is going to come from this if we screw up.
Yeah.
Somebody's goal will be wrong. That's all.
Yes.
That's
Well,
so before we get into the topic today, which is about group inventories, and I'm really looking forward to that, by the way, because I've never really experienced a group inventory except for sort of one that we did for our area. And maybe we can talk about that a little bit as we go into the program a little bit more, Angela. But before we get into that, I'd like to just kind of talk about what we're going to be doing tomorrow at ICSA, if that is okay with everybody.
That sounds good to me.
Okay, so what
Toby's okay with it too.
Toby's okay? Good.
Yeah, he's gonna nap through it.
Aw. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to show you the post that we put up the other day. There you go. And I think you should be able to see that okay now. I'll make sure it's big enough. Yeah, I think you can see that okay. So ICSA, the International Conference of Secular AA, that will be coming here tomorrow. It will be at 12 o'clock noon Eastern time. So that's like the people in New York and all on the East in the United States and in North America. That will be 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern, which is 9 o'clock a.m. Pacific time and 5 o'clock p.m. GMT. And I apologize because I'm always confused with the European time zones. But I know that it's 5 o'clock p.m. in London, England, when this thing starts. So that'll help you people in Europe figure out what time it is, I guess. The doors will open 30 minutes before the official start time, and you don't have any need to register or anything. And if you go to the Secular AA website, and you can go to secularaa.org, you'll get a little warning that says danger, danger. Don't worry about that. That's just because the security certificate isn't attached to it. But you can also go to aasecular.org and just click on to learn about the conference, and you'll come to this. But they have hyperlinks to get to everything. So like the very first hyperlink, if you click on it, it'll take you straight to the Zoom meeting where the conference will be taking place. And the main room is going to be the Beyond Belief room. So the Beyond Belief group from Toronto is loaning their Zoom room for us to use that. And the first speaker is going to be Dr. George Koob over here, you see. And he is the director of the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism. And I've read a couple of books about the science of alcoholism, and he's always referred to as an expert in those books. So other experts quote him as an expert. So he is really he knows his stuff. So that will be really interesting to see what he has to say. But he's going to speak for about 30 minutes. And when he's done, we're going to have a discussion about diversity in Alcoholics Anonymous. And the whole idea is to talk about special purpose groups like LGBTQ groups, young people's groups, Black, Native Americans, people of color, women, secular, etc. And to talk about starting those meetings and what it was like. And whatever might come from that. That's just an opportunity for everybody who wants to participate and to share to do so. So that'll be at 12:30, and that's in the Beyond Belief room. So you see in the very beginning, the first hour, well, the first 12, from 12 to 12, first hour, everything takes place in the Beyond Belief room. Then starting at 1 o'clock, things start splitting up. So you'll have 2 rooms to go to. You'll have the Oh My God room, and you'll have the Beyond Belief room still. So, and if you stay in the Beyond Belief room, they're going to have a panel called "It Came from the Kitchen, Not an Outside Issue: Are Sexism and Gender Bias Keeping AA Stuck?" And that's going to be chaired by Maria Hornbacher, author of Waiting, a Nonbeliever's Higher Power, Beth H. from Phoenix, Arizona, and Heather CV from Los Angeles, California. So that's going to be, I can tell you, being familiar with those women, that's going to be a fantastic panel. I wish that I could see that one, but I won't be able to see it because I will be monitoring things in the Oh My God room, and I will be at the Is It Ever Okay to Leave AA panel, which I'm looking forward to. That is featuring John Stewart. He is from Brighton, England. I got to interview him when we first started this podcast. He is in a band called Sleeper. And I think he's like the lead guitarist. And forgive me, John, if I got that wrong. But he's a truly nice guy. But beyond just being a musician and a nice guy and an alcoholic, he is also like an expert on, I would say, on a recovery culture. I would call him an expert on that. I mean, he's got a degree and he'll explain it, but he's got a doctorate in this kind of stuff. So anyway, and he knows a lot about AA history, and he although he doesn't attend AA meetings and it's not for him, I like his approach because he's not beating it up on AA. At least he wasn't when I was talking to him, but he really believes that people should have choice, and mix and match, do what works for you, so it'll be really interesting to hear what he has to say, because I haven't really heard his views for about 5 years. And like all of us, your views evolve over time. So it'll be really interesting. And along with him will be John Huey and Vic Losick, both of them amazing speakers. Vic Losick is very smooth, very professional, very intelligent, and so is John Huey. John, as you know, he's been on our podcast quite a bit, and so has Vic been on there at least once. So that'll be an interesting panel as well. And then you've got going on down from there. If you have a decision, you can listen to Dr. George Kolodner and Brian Gill. They're from a treatment center called the Colmac Outpatient Recovery Centers, and that was like, they'll talk about it, but from what I understand, it was like one of the first treatment centers to incorporate the 12 steps in their program. So that should be interesting to listen to them. And if you don't go to listen to them at the same time in the Oh My God room, it came from London, where we'll be talking about the God word and how that came to be and how it might be a good first step for secular people in Alcoholics Anonymous. Then at the same time, then you go down to 3 o'clock. Again, you have the Oh My God room is Kathy Mitchell. She's the vice president of and international spokesperson for the National Organization on Fetal Alcohol Syndrome. And so that should be interesting what she has to say. I mean, she is the subject matter expert on that. And then at the same time in the Beyond Belief room, it came from our past. That is going to be an amazing panel. It's going to be hosted by Jackie B from San Francisco. She is the chair of the History Symposium, and Chris Finan, the author of Drunks, The Story of Alcoholism and the Birth of Recovery. Bob Kay, author of Key Players in AA History, and William Schauberg, author of Writing the Big Book. An incredible panel. That's going to be really interesting. That goes from 3 to 4. Then at 4 o'clock, everything is going to wind down. I guess you can call it that. This is just kind of a wild party time, I guess, at 4 o'clock. We're going to have entertainment and an after party. And the entertainment is going to be hosted by my friend from Kansas City, David S., who is an hilarious comedian. And he will be introducing the Hank Parkhurst Blackout Players. And they will be performing a skit called Is a Belief in God or Gods Necessary for Sustained Sobriety? And that should be a pretty interesting skit. And I know Angela's looking forward to that one. So it's like you said, it's a rite of passage to actually see an AA skit. And I don't know if I've seen one or not. I kind of think I saw one once, but it's kind of a blur. And then during this whole thing, if you're confused, you don't know how to go from one room to the next, or this schedule is confusing, you have questions, or you just want to chat with somebody, you can visit the Secular AA Lounge, and there's no passcode needed. You can just click on the link here, and there will always be somebody staffing that to answer any questions that you have or just to chat with you. And you can go to this post on the Secular AA website, and you can see that they have all the passcodes and everything there. So there you go. That's the information. If anybody has any questions about it, please, you can type in the chat, and I would be glad to answer those questions for you. Where am I? I got a big yellow screen. Oh, people are chatting. Okay. Hello, everybody. Oh, you get to see a little behind the scenes. There we go. All right. So any questions about that? Anybody? Oh, Joe says it's going to be great. It will be great, Joe. And Joe, thank you for, I wouldn't want to do this without Joe for sure. He actually knows what's going on. He knows how to do things. He is calm and collected about it all. So it's good to have somebody like that doing something like this, because I'm
Yeah. Joe's my AA service hero, because
yeah.
I don't know that I've ever seen him like excited in a agitated way about things. I mean, I've seen him passionate about certain discussions and stuff, but never like, he's just
he just everything is just fine, you know. So
it'll all work out, or it won't, or even if it doesn't, then that's, you know, how it's going to work out. And so
I bring with me a lot of darkness and negativity.
You do not. You do not.
Anyway.
So, but yeah, just the calmness and stuff. Yeah. It's what I aspire to as far as service and things. So thank you, Joe.
Yes, thank you, Joe. And you know what? It is going to be fun, and I think the nervousness just is that it'll go away as I get involved and start talking to people and interacting with everybody. It's just going to be fun. Quite frankly, I was nervous just going to the in-person ones too. I get nervous about it, you know. But once I get there, it's kind of fun.
Yeah, so. Definitely. And it reminds me of, I used to do community theater, and that you know, right up to the night of the first show, I'd be nervous, and also my directors were always nervous because I could not get my lines right, even the night before the show. And then, you know, right before the show, I'd usually throw up, and then get on there, and I was perfect. I had everything memorized. I knew where we were when my cohorts, you know, fellow actors would lose their spot. I could redirect, and a different part of my brain took over, and it was fun. But yeah, the stuff leading up to it can be stressful, and so I don't envy you that, but I thank you for all the work you put into it, you know, and all the stuff you do, but particularly with putting on conferences like this. And I'm really hopeful that things will be in a good spot, that we can all meet in October.
I'm optimistic
of next year, because because hopefully I have a lot of new friends, and a lot fewer enemies than I would have had at last October's. No.
Shall we get into the topic?
Sure.
So tonight we're going to be talking about group inventories, and Angela has done these, and recently has done one with her group, so she knows all about it. So she's going to be taking the lead here to kind of go over it. Angela, can you first kind of explain what a group inventory is and why a group might want to do one?
A little bit. So, you know, I'm not an expert in this area. My experience is that I've done exactly 2 of them. And the first one was early in sobriety. So like within my first year at my first home group, I participated in one. And then our group, my current home group, did one just on Wednesday. So I thought that I could talk a little bit about both of those, at least my experience. And then if anybody who's listening wants to call in and share their experience or any corrections, anything they want to say about it, then that's welcome too. So the first one I recall doing, I had it explained to me that what we were doing is basically like the inventory we do for a fourth step, except doing it for the group, and that they basically take it kind of as the traditions, going through to see how well the group is fulfilling its primary purpose. And in our area, in Boise, they usually brought somebody from a different group to facilitate the discussion or, mediate, whatever you want to call it. And they did that. I'm not sure who decided who was going to do that. I think that there were just a few members who had gone through it, and other members thought that they seemed pretty good at it, and so they would be contacted and see if they were willing. And the other thing is that they took like forever. I think it was between like 4 and 6 hours was
Oh,
what we
wow.
were asked to set aside to do these things. And so it was done like on a weekend, generally at somebody's house, and the facilitator, would be there, and they'd go over these questions with us, and each person would kind of say how they felt about whether we were or were not fulfilling that part of the primary purpose of our group. And so, so the facilitator was there because, as we know, some personalities are stronger in different groups, and there's kind of, de facto group leaders and stuff. And so that by having somebody else, asking these questions and, doing some timing stuff on it, making sure that people got the same amount of time to share and interjecting if things started to get a little bit heated, that was helpful. I don't recall it getting particularly crazy at that one. There were some very strong feelings, but I was early enough in recovery that, I didn't know why or, what was going on really. I mainly had gone to it because there was a guy who had like 5 years who had a crush on me. And so, so I was mainly there to, flirt. And they had free food. So those, as some of you know, are my primary thing for early recovery is I went to meetings that had quality snacks. And so we, sat around and went through these questions. And I think they have a format that you can use for it. And they kind of go through and ask people, let's see, what is it? Some of the questions, I think I wrote them down here.
Did you follow the, is it like from that pamphlet, the group?
Yeah. There's the group pamphlet. And so there were things like, what is the primary, what is the purpose of the group? What more can the group do to carry the message? Is the group attracting alcoholics from different backgrounds? Are we seeing a good cross section of the community? Do members stick with us, or is there a high turnover? If so, why, and what can we do? Do we emphasize the importance of sponsorship? How effectively, and how can we do it better?
Or do we want to do better?
Yeah. Are we careful to preserve the anonymity of our group members and other AAs outside the meeting? Do confidences they share stay in the meetings? Do we take time to explain to all the members the value of group housekeeping and and how that is a part of carrying the 12-step message or efforts? Are all members given the opportunity to speak at meetings and participate in other group activities? Are we mindful that holding office is a great responsibility, not to be viewed as a popularity contest? Are we choosing our officers with care? Are we all doing what we can to provide an attractive meeting place? And yeah, for my Zoom group, we try to get the people who are the most attractive, higher up on the screen so that they're not, no. So what's the next one? Does the group, let's see, do the group fair share towards participating in the purpose of AA as it relates to our 3 legacies of recovery, unity, and service? Yeah. So do we, think about that and work on that? And what has the group done lately to bring the AA message to the attention of medical professionals and people in the community courts, people who work with directly with drug addicts and alcoholics? And then how is our group fulfilling its responsibility to the seventh tradition? And so those are kind of the main ones. Our group had a couple of others. My current home group.
They wanted to know, with the first one you went to, was that at a secular group or a?
No, it was traditional.
Okay.
So it was before we started the secular meeting in Boise. So so I was less than a year sober when I attended that one. And in the stuff that I thought was interesting was, again, there was an emphasis on everybody having a say or expressing how they felt, and that people had to work if they disagreed to still be respectful, and that was interesting to me, because you have a lot of different people in a lot of different stages of recovery or sobriety, so it was an interesting experience, being a part of that. The main goal of it wasn't to actually do anything. So we'd talk about, each person would talk about whether they thought we were or were not, fulfilling that. There were time limits because, depending on how many members are participating, that could really take a long time, which is why they would have you schedule out, block out a large number of hours for it. Notes would be taken to, discuss at a later time. So most of it was
about just kind of getting people to think and be aware of these things.
Yeah. Because particularly those of us who were new or in recovery, we were just getting the hang of, that we do that for ourselves to get sober. And so learning, how this stuff, comes together is a part of the program, for a lot of people, and the 12th step and the service leg of everything. And so, how does the group come together and make decisions? It's also a good introduction to group conscience. Because, while we didn't make any decisions, it showed how some of the information was gathered so that when you did go to the business meeting and decisions were discussed or ideas, how it came together, people had a better idea of where people were coming from if they put out a opinion, or if they disagreed with an opinion, still it felt like there was more thoughtfulness involved, and less ego when coming to decisions and stuff like that. So
we have a call, Angela. Let's see who this might be. Hello,
John. Hi, Angela. This is Fred.
Hey, Fred. How you doing?
In Virginia.
Good to hear from you.
Good. I was listening to Angela, and we had a lot of the same things, but we had things like the group service representatives, what they would bring back from the state conventions, and we had a grapevine representative for the group, and we had a bunch of different things in our old traditional meeting that kind of took up a lot of time and also brought a bunch of information to people who were interested in rallying for, the alcoholics' recovery and the different ways of how to obtain that. I think that you made some good points, Angela, and that the group inventory. Some people don't want to carry the ball, and then it seems like there's just a few people that are willing to do a lot of the work, and the other people just sit by the wayside. Now, I was one time a committee chairman for the group Conscience. That was a crazy job because you had to listen to everybody battle over the way they were going to vote about how the group did something. And really, your opinion didn't matter. You had to go by the guidelines of what the traditions and the concepts were and kind of rule over something like that. And, with round robin's rules and all the stuff that goes with it, it just took up a bunch of time. And a lot of times it didn't seem like it accomplished much, except people got rid of all the trash that they wanted to get rid of, bashing or doing some kind of thing that, they didn't like about AA.
Did you notice anything different Did you notice anything different with the group after y'all did that?
I quite didn't hear, John.
Did you notice that any improvement with the group after y'all did the inventory?
Oh yeah, we always had some improvement, and sometimes we had problems where somebody really got upset, and they started their own group, or else they didn't come back. Some people got upset about those things.
Yeah.
But other times they'd break off and say, well, we don't like this, and we're going to start our own group. So that's what happened. But
yeah,
I can't tell you how many times I just walked away shaking my head, saying, well, if this is what it's all about, so be it. Because a lot of times it didn't make sense sometimes.
Yeah. Well, that's really interesting.
It's all, it is interesting. So, I just, I guess I figure I'm part of your group now somehow because I've phoned in a number of times
That's
to
right.
try to relate some issues that are pertinent to sobriety.
Yep.
And, you just have to go with the flow, because it's like a unanimous decision that carries the vote.
Yeah.
I remember one time I was down in Macon, Georgia for the state convention, and it was the only state that didn't have majority rule. They picked the state delegate by draw of the hat.
Oh, wow.
At that time.
That's interesting.
And I think there was some place in Canada that had the same thing.
Oh, interesting.
But I think most of the whole nation is majority rule.
Yeah.
And so just remember that people get upset about a lot of things because they have issues.
True.
That they haven't coped with.
Right.
And they don't know how to deal with it.
They're not comfortable dealing with it.
And if you've already been through that, you have something that you can offer, because listeners always seem to win over the people that are going to argue about everything.
Yeah.
Because they in the end, they have the answer. They're part of the solution.
Yeah.
Whereas the battlers in the conflicts of issues always are tongue-tied in the end, and the person who listens comes up with the answer.
Yeah. Well, Fred, you are
That's
a
kind of
regular.
strange.
You are a regular and welcomed part of this live stream, and I'm glad you got a new phone because, man, the quality is just excellent. The sound quality of your phone is just perfect, pitch perfect. So you always sound good on these live streams now. So that's nice.
Mm.
Um,
Thanks,
Well,
Fred.
wish you the best through the
oh
wish you the best
yes,
through the holiday seasons,
you too.
and hope that we have some days behind us that the ones in the future are all what we're looking for, because that's where we have to watch out, and that's where sobriety lies,
Yep,
because everything that's already happened we can't do anything about.
yep,
So you have to practice those principles and work the steps and try to keep the traditions of the group. And it's not easy to rally behind people sometime in a virtual environment, because virtually we don't know what to expect, and just talking with each other, this is not planned or anything. This is just a conversation of somebody who has experience. So it's not you have to form your own opinion
hmm,
and use your better judgment. And sometimes no judgment at all is the best.
yep, yep,
Because that's a guideline that can't be torn apart.
absolutely.
If you're not judging somebody else in a diverse society, your judgment is true. Whereas if you're judgmental with this fundamental reality of recovery, then it's criticizing
Hmm.
or critical that somebody reads into something that says, well, you're prejudiced towards this or that.
Right.
And the best thing in diversity is just keep an open mind.
Again, thank you for calling,
So,
Fred. I really appreciate it. We better move on to some other comments that we have coming through the chat. But it was so nice to hear from you. And again, like I say, I love that new phone, and I hope you have a Merry Christmas.
and saying to you all, I hope the holiday is good for you. The people are lonely. The pandemic has done a toll to so many displacement of oriented down hardcore sobriety people, because they have no place to go or
Yep.
share their experience, strength, and hope. And it's really, I think it's hurt a lot of people in recovery. I hear that the alcoholism rate has increased
Oh, it
since
has.
the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, gotta go. Thank you so much,
I
Fred.
wish you both the best, and
You too.
enjoy the show.
Thank you so much. Take care
Go
now.
ahead.
Bye bye.
Yeah.
Take
Okay.
care, Fred.
We don't have to. We don't have to direct it anymore.
That's right.
Mhm.
You
Love
will.
you. Bye.
I just
Love you.
wanted.
Bye.
Bye bye. I just wanted to point out. Kathy made a couple of comments, Angela, before we kind of move on, but she said that safety issues have become another hot topic.
Mhm.
Both in the in-person and Zoom meetings, because of the disruptors or chronic 13 steppers. And there's
Mhm.
always a discussion about how to handle that.
Mhm.
And then she also says that that they used to cringe when the subject of a prudent reserve was brought up. It's just part of the basic education, what it takes to maintain a healthy group. Newcomers don't necessarily know or haven't practiced this in their personal lives.
Right, right. Well, one of the things that I was thinking of when, and I'll come back to that when
Mhm.
Fred had called up, was as I was thinking about this today, I wish I would have gone a little bit to Joe's Beyond Belief Agnostic Musings book before I went to my meeting on Wednesday. He has some really good stuff on just to help you think about group conscience and trying to, I guess I'd say, center yourself, because ego can really get involved, and there's
Mm.
personalities and
Absolutely.
all of that kind of stuff. So if you're thinking about doing this with your group, you might check out May 22nd's musing, August 23rd, and then December 31st. And I think those three are really would be helpful as kind of a starting point to get yourself in a good spot, and then maybe you won't, annoy your
Yeah.
your people as much. I got a little bit snarky at ours, and that was going to be my other point, is if you decide to do one with your group, that the weekend probably would be a better thing. I think our group decided, because a lot of us really value our weekend, so most people did not want to take away time from that. But doing it so late in the evening, a lot of people in our group also work, and some of the members, people are in different time zones and stuff now, and so I don't know that we were at our most patient. Nothing was terrible with ours. Nothing was thrown that we know of. You can, black out your screen and mute yourself. So maybe there was, but as far as I know, it actually went pretty smoothly. But those are some things to take into consideration when you're trying to do a group conscience, is trying to set it at a time where people tend to be a little bit more at their best, or more open-minded, and able to bring their best selves to the group inventory. So as far as the stuff that Kathy brought up, I think those do come into play. I know that for our group personally, that we've talked about those things both at business meetings when we were meeting in person, and we've actually had meetings where that's the topic of the group meeting for the night, is safety in AA, and people would share, their experience with what they thought that meant. They'd, like Joe said, the yellow cards, or, people would share a lot of women would share some experiences they had in early recovery, and kind of what they wish they had known then, or what they wish other people had done. Several people, I think mostly on the men's side, they had people who they felt would try to take advantage of them financially. And so that was another one that they would bring up, and what they thought. And so those ideas, I think, are coming up, or at least in the secular community, we're not really afraid to talk about it. At least, my experience has been, we haven't been afraid to talk about it. It can get crazy. One of our districts did try to have a district workshop on it, and that did not go well. The police did arrive for that one, but stuff like that happens. Where was I? So for our group, we had been considering doing a group inventory prior to COVID, and so we had started to figure out how we wanted to go about doing that. Since we're not, traditional, there are things that we, don't like to do as much by the book. And sometimes there aren't enough people who even know the book, as in, like the concepts, to be able to, bring things about. And so it's kind of a mismatch of people with group experience and service experience, and those with none, and people who do the whole sponsorship and 12-step thing, and some who don't. And so it's always interesting. So for our group inventory, one person had volunteered. A couple of them put the form together, but we decided we would do a Google form where we would put the questions on, and a couple of the questions, I think we did a few additional questions that kind of pertained more to our group. its specific mission, and then we added a couple regarding that were more Zoom related, since that's what we're doing. I know that at the beginning of it we kept putting off doing one because we didn't know how long we would be doing the Zoom thing, and when it became apparent that we'd be doing this for a while, we decided to just do an inventory and base it on how our Zoom meetings are run. And I think it was helpful. So we sent out a link for that form, and then people could fill it out. And sometimes they were, or we let anybody who attended our meeting do it. So I do recall with the first one that I did with the traditional meeting early on, that it was only group members that were involved. So people who, kind of had a stake in what the group did or identified as a group member. But for us, we put it out to anybody who was attending our meetings, so not just group members. And because it was an anonymous form, they could be completely honest on what they thought, how we were doing on each of those questions. And so then we decided to use that, the answers, as a way to go through, the questions and see if we agreed or disagreed with what the answers were. And so one of our group members, basically aggregated all the answers, because we like to use words like aggregate at our meeting, and so kind of put them all together, and would share, when most of them were very similar, and if anything was somewhat or had multiple answers that weren't, then he'd read what those were, and we kind of take turns talking about it. Not everybody spoke on every single question, because that would have taken a long time. So we did it in just a little over 2 hours, which was pretty good.
So it wasn't like there was a debate or anything. Like if one person answered the question one way and someone disagreed with them, there wasn't like a back and forth disagreement. It was just people just expressed their view. Is that how that worked?
Yeah. So like, say the first question, what is the purpose of the group? One of the things that was helpful by doing it through a Google form, was that, there were multiple answers, but they were all basically the same. And so, they said that the purpose of this group was to provide a secular meeting for recovering alcoholics. And so, yeah, so with that, everybody pretty much could be like, yeah, that's what we think our group is about as well. And then for things where it wasn't as much, so like the topic of sponsorship, that one had different opinions, but again, it wasn't like we were arguing with each other. Right. It was still talked about, from our experience. So we still used kind of that meeting model of, this is either my experience or my thought about, what we think the meeting is or how we feel. But that was one that took a little bit of extra time, because there were several people who thought that we didn't put enough emphasis in our meetings on sponsorship, and so then, a couple of people shared, well, that's because not everybody in our group does the sponsorship thing. Not all of them, have sponsors. Not everybody in our group goes through the 12 steps. And so, how much, is this applicable, and do we want to make it more applicable? There are several members that wanted it to be more, and that thought we should do something at the meeting level, the Zoom meeting level, to let people know that, sponsors were available and that we thought that was important. But, another member then said, well, how many sponsors are available? And, and for a long time in our group, when it first got started, I was the only female sponsor available, who was atheist
Mhm.
or secular in any way. And so, now there are more people, but how many are attending Zoom meetings regularly and stuff. So so those all of those points kind of got brought up, but because it wasn't the inventory wasn't designed to be
Right, you may not
solutions.
making a decision,
Yeah,
right,
it was just
yeah.
like these are
See, it's
things that
different
we
than a
need to
business. It's
consider.
different than a group conscience or a business meeting, but
Yeah,
not
yeah,
bad, yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. It's just it's getting all the ideas out there, and then if there are people that are like, we really need to take this safety issue, seriously. There are people who are being extremely aggressive, and we need to look at that. Then they can say that, and we'll add it to the business meeting of we need to take a look at this, and what does GSO say about this, or what
Mhm.
are some of the guidelines that because there are very few issues that come up that haven't come up in the last 100 years,
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
So I mean, there are some with technology, but oftentimes that's not what the real problem is. It comes down to people and personalities and behaviors and stuff. So anyway, yeah, so we'd go through these questions, and the ones that did seem to have multiple opinions about, or that people really considered and said, yeah, we should take a look at that more, we added to a list to talk about at the upcoming business meetings. And because there were multiple things, we're not going to do it all at the next business meeting, but we'll have a list to look at, and then we'll be able to decide in what order we want to tackle those things and stuff like that. So I think it went, like I said, fairly well. I don't think that anybody was angry. I think everybody felt, for the most part, happy that they did it, and felt good about the experience in general. And so I would suggest it for people who want to do it for their Zoom meetings, that there are multiple ways you can do it. You don't have to do it the way that we did, but we did take quite a bit of consideration about how our group dynamics are in general, and what would work best for our group as far as doing something like this. And so we found doing the questions by a Google Forms, and then adding that information together, and then using that as the format for going through the questions, so that we didn't necessarily have to have each person answer the question. It was there was an aggregated couple responses, and then if somebody else had something to add, or if they disagreed what those responses were, they would add that, and it seemed to work out pretty well for us.
Joe has a question. I'm going to take a stab at it, and you might have a better approach to this, Angela, than I would. But Joe says, how does one approach someone when the main 13th stepper is a woman? In our old group, it feels very uncomfortable. I would say it doesn't matter, man or woman, but I think that probably it's better for men to approach a man if it's a man. And if you have more than a few women in the group, have women approach women. I kind of think that would be best. But I have had an experience with this. And I'm not going to say that I did it the best way, but it was effective. What we had going on in our group, and it was just one woman who had this happen to her. It wasn't like 13th stepping in the sense that it was like to me it seemed like it was like harassment. Maybe that's what 13th stepping is. To me, it was like sexual harassment. If it would have happened in the workplace, he would have been fired. And it just made me so mad. I just told him not to ever come. I just was told him to stay the hell away I told him to stay away from the women in this group. And I was so angry, and I was so focused on that he never came back again. And that was probably not the right way to do it, but I just felt like this is just so unacceptable, this type of behavior. And it was, to me, it was so over the board, and it was just it was what he said. It wasn't anything that he did, but it was to me, so inappropriate and so wrong. And I just wouldn't have it. So that's what I did. I mean, to me, it was just like, I felt so strongly about it. I had to do that, but he never did come back.
All right, then. Yeah, I think that there's a
Well, there's
several
degrees
different
of,
ways,
yeah,
yeah,
and there's
to
degrees.
deal
I
with
mean,
it.
if
Um,
someone could be doing something completely different, but anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
right.
Angela.
And there are lots of different, I don't know, nuances and stuff
True.
to it. So I think, my experience has been having a discussion at group level so that the main group members and home group members are all aware of, how the group feels about it, what they think are some of the signs and signals and things to look for, because it's like, how much do you go in protecting somebody? I mean, the majority of the people that come in are adults, and and so you have to consider that as well. But having discussions on it so that there's an awareness, and we had a situation in our group where someone was accusing somebody of harassment, and so we tried to get a discussion of what was happening, and it was two people who had been dating and were no longer dating. And so so what we came to was that if the person who felt that they were being harassed by phone and things like that outside of the meeting wanted us to walk with them to and from the meeting, or provide some sort of example so that we understood, because that we weren't seeing it going on, and the other person was saying, no, I'm not doing this, and and it's like, so what's our group responsibility as far as that situation? And that happens a lot in AA,
That's
where
tough.
people are dating and then are
Yeah.
no longer dating. And
Yeah.
so do we just go with the side that feels that they're being harassed, which is oftentimes in the past has been the female, so we did the best we could at that time, which was we asked questions and we offered what we thought we could do, and that we would get together and be very happy to either meet with each person separately, like the core group, so that we understood what was going on. Also we said, if that person is harassing you, is this something you need to call the police about? And if that's the case, then we will, definitely, cooperate with whatever you need to be able to attend the meeting, on that level. But they didn't want to do that. They just basically wanted us to kick the person out of the meeting.
Yeah.
And the group conscience, felt that we didn't have enough information that would indicate that we needed to kick anybody out of the meeting. We would have preferred that they both, stayed and that we could work on it, but that's not how it worked out. And again, I don't know if that was the right way or the wrong way, but that was the way that our group handled it. And it was probably, I don't know, 9 years ago or something like that, 10 years ago. In other circumstances, I know that it's been difficult for me when I am working with somebody who's new, and they share with me, that somebody is, approaching them, and that they're attracted to, some guy in another meeting or something. And particularly if it's somebody that I know from the community, tends to be fond of newcomers, how I share that with them. And that takes nuance as well, because again, we're not usually dealing with young people. We're dealing with adults, and
Right.
so to say, no, you can't date that person, or this is a very bad person, you should stay away from them. We're alcoholics too. Very likely that person is going to be like, screw you, I'm just going to go do this. And so anyway, most of the time, unless it's somebody that is a verified predator in some way, I try to just share my experience, and let them make sure that they know that I'm open to whatever they decide to do in that area, that it's I'm not going to judge them. This is my experience with situations like that. But again, we did do the safety thing, and that did not go well for our district. And the way that our group handled that was that because a good portion of it had to do with our group's existence. and some people that were harassing people in our group specifically, was that we researched and made a recommendation to the district on how they should handle group workshops in the future, and that they should have somebody who's in charge of safety at the workshop, and that as they're introducing the topics or what the workshop is, making sure people understand that this person is in charge of, of safety at this workshop. And if they see what they deem to be somebody using their phone to videotape or record people without, their express permission, and they ask you to leave, that you will need to leave, and that they have the group conscience support to ask people to leave, and things like that. And so they were open to that, and they adopted that as part of guidelines to hold workshops from now on. Part of the problem was that they really didn't have guidelines for workshops. They just was like, okay, you are the what is the vice DCM person, it's your responsibility to do a workshop. You need to find a location and chairs and organize some sort of a food thing. And that was basically, it. That's all they gave the person. And so, so we felt like there needed to be a little bit more guidance on that, and it needed to be in writing, so that it could be handed to the person with their responsibilities and there's this step that you need to delegate, and so that safety is taken into consideration, because we were being videotaped and put on YouTube without our permission,
Wow.
and so, and that this person, has harassed a couple of our members on multiple occasions. And so the police were called, and, and it definitely gave the district, the heads up on what to do, that we're in a different era now, and these are some of the things that you need to consider for that. So safety, I think, is an important issue, and I think it'll continue to be an important issue. And as far as Zoom stuff, I think, again, it's a group issue, and that the group can decide how they want to handle people who are interrupting or, causing problems, or security, how they want to do that, depending on how large the group is and stuff. So there are a few different things. One thing that came out of our group inventory is that nobody knew how to use the closed captioning in Zoom. I believe it exists, but that, part of the inventory asked about, accessibility.
I never knew that either.
Yeah, and we do have a member who is hearing impaired, and that she does different things on her own to make it so she can hear better.
Right.
But we had never considered that because none of us had to deal with it.
There is that setting in Zoom where you can click on for closed captioning. How about that?
Yeah. And so that was something good that came out of it, was
Absolutely.
that, by going through those questions, we're like, accessibility. Well, there is
that alone made it worth it, didn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow,
We were first
great.
just thinking tech accessibility, which people do have difficulty with, but beyond that, so we learned about the closed captioning, and then just some of the stuff that had changed because we had to move so quickly onto Zoom, that the boilerplate or script or whatever meeting template was kind of, slashed and cut in different ways to try to make it, so that it worked better. But there were things that were cut out of it that people wanted added back, like in our in-person meeting, we usually read a different version of the 12 steps, during the passing of the basket. So, at about halftime, as I called it. And we weren't doing that, and people wanted to hear that. They thought it was helpful to newcomers, particularly, to hear that there are a lot of different versions of the 12 steps, and maybe there'd be one that spoke to them. And so now we're going to be having somebody do that at the meeting, and they get to pick out what version they feel like reading that week, and so that'll be included.
That's a good idea for people who are interested in the steps and wanting to know how you can do them in a secular way.
Yeah. So there was that. There's, again, we're going to be discussing things on sponsorship and how we want to handle that. And and also publicity, basically, because we haven't had our name on any of the major lists. And part of that was that there was, it took a little bit of time for some people to get used to Zoom, and then having a whole bunch of people that they, didn't know suddenly come in. That was a little bit.
Right. I think in the beginning, a lot of groups didn't really want it to be advertised. They wanted to keep it for them.
Right.
Their group,
They were
Mhm.
fearful about it, but our groups, evolved, and we really like the people that are coming. And so I think at the first of the year, once we do our next business meeting and get some of our other new things figured out, that we'll, be posting ours on the list as well. But basically we wanted to have responsible growth. I was taking like a county commissioner view of it, of, yeah, how do we do responsible growth in our meeting, so that, it's not bombarded. But yeah, change is difficult, and we had a lot of change really quickly. And so that was one that I think, we took a bit conservative effort on. And so now the group is ready to have our group be one of the ones listed in the main meeting stuff, so that anybody who needs a meeting can hang out in Boise with the atheists, agnostics, and all others. So
yeah. Well, we've come up on an hour, and I learned a lot. And I think it sounds to me like your group inventory is actually a good thing for your Zoom meeting here.
I think it went well. So
yeah. I put on a link here to this comes from a San Diego, either a district or an area.
Mm-hmm.
And basically it is the outline that you went through, Angela, and it's taken directly from the pamphlet, the AA group, I think is what it's called. And it's like 13 questions that your group can ask as part of the inventory and as a way to have a discussion. So if you want to have a group inventory with your group, you can use this. You could probably add your own questions too if you want to. So
yeah, I think our group had like 20 questions, and so yeah.
All right. Well, I'm just going to make a couple of announcements about upcoming podcasts. I'm kind of excited. I've had some interviews that we'll be recording, some pretty interesting ones actually. We got this one coming up next week. Is going to be this fellow from Thailand who actually wrote an article in AA Agnostica, and he is putting together a book about agnostics working the steps. And then after that, I got to speak with somebody from the organization Birds of a Feather, and they're like for pilots and in AA, and it was really interesting talking to him about how Birds of a Feather got started, the issues that pilots have with alcoholism and so forth, and recovery. Was interesting.
Yeah, they were going to have the room next to us at the big conference in Detroit last summer. Yeah.
Oh, that would have been so cool. I would have loved that. No, I wasn't.
I was excited about it too.
I wasn't going to go to that conference, but if I would have loved to have seen that. And in retrospect, they didn't have the conference. It doesn't matter, but I wish I would have gone. And I like Detroit too, to be honest with you. That when we went to Toronto, we stopped by and spent actually like 3 or 4 days in Detroit. Wow. And actually had a really good time. I like that city, so I was really kind of looking forward to it. Then I've got an interview with Colette C. that we just recorded, and that'll be coming up on the 23rd. And then finally, this is a conversation I just had last night, and it was with the Secular Overeaters group. Yeah, and they put together this website, secularovereaters.org, which is really a cool site. And they were talking about how they were the challenges they had with getting secular OA meetings going. It was a lot more difficult in OA than it is in AA. They were talking about that.
Yeah, same with Al-Anon. Yeah.
Yeah, with Al-Anon too. Yeah. So anyway, I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow at the virtual ICSA. I am looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'll be there as well.
Be there with Belcon.
Yeah, feel free to message and say hi.
Absolutely. Here we go. And that's it. Like I said, we'll see you tomorrow at ICSA, virtual ICSA online, and we'll be back again next week for another live stream. Y'all take care. Have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.